Welcome back to another episode of the Top Left podcast, and where we talk about a lot of topics obviously impacting MSPs around the world. The focus on leadership, on lean, on agile, Kanban, of course, and a little bit of top left. So we talk with clients, we talk with other coaches, partners, that sort of thing, and bringing things of value to the MSP world. Today, I'm excited to bring on not only a client, but a friend and my partner at Crafty Penguins. So Chris Pickett is the president at Crafty Penguins, one of our companies in our group, and a longtime top left user as well. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. So we're kind of planning a topic for this, and I'm going to talk about capacity planning today. Welcome back to another episode of the Top Left podcast, and where we talk about a lot of topics obviously impacting MSPs around the world. The focus on leadership, on lean, on agile, Kanban, of course, and a little bit of top left. So we talk with clients, we talk with other coaches, partners, that sort of thing, and bringing things of value to the MSP world. Today, I'm excited to bring on not only a client, but a friend and my partner at Crafty Penguins. So Chris Pickett is the president at Crafty Penguins, one of our companies in our group, and a longtime top left user as well. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. So we're kind of planning a topic for this, and I'm going to talk about capacity planning today. But let's just back up a little bit, I guess, and just talk a bit of context. Who is Crafty Penguins? What do you do? What's been your journey with Crafty Penguins so far?
So Crafty Penguins was born out of a normal Windows-based MSP. Wim, you have been part of the dark side, is what we call it, for quite a while. Where Linux is in your blood, and so I know that. Way back when you decided that you were going to provide services around Linux and Windows. And as a result, you created Kirchhoff Technologies, which did both. And then over time, the Linux business grew to the place where it had its own section, its own division in the company. And then it got even bigger, and you crafted a name. Crafty Penguins is what came out of that. So now it's its its own entity, and we are solely focused on open source based infrastructure management. So we don't do a lot of workstation type work, but we manage a significantly large number of servers and IT infrastructure that are based around Linux based and open source software.
Yeah. Awesome.
Personally, I came on as a Linux engineer. I've worked in the space for the better part of 30 years, and I love it, passionate about it, and so there was a great fit here at Kirchhoff Technologies when I was introduced to this idea of actually being able to do this for a living.
Yeah. Not just on the weekends or evenings for fun.
Yeah.
No, awesome. Yeah, we probably started around the same time, like 25 years ago or something with Linux. Maybe you're a bit earlier on it. I don't know. Yeah.
90. Well, I started in university and was managing it wasn't Linux at that time. It was they were Unix machines, just doing Unix system administration, simple stuff for the university. I was in 94, 93. So yeah, something like that.
And then how large is the Crafty Penguins team now, with a little bit of context for our listeners?
Yeah, so we've got 2 teams of engineers. Total capacity is in the area of 12 technicians, 12 Linux engineers that are currently involved in just the service level. That doesn't include the administration and finance and all that kind of stuff, but that's the size of the engineering team.
Yeah. Okay.
We've grown quite a bit over the last couple of years. We've doubled in size twice now, I think, over the last 2 years. So there's been a significant increase in the number of in the demand for Linux-based services, and so that's what we're responding to.
Yeah. The demand has increased. We've obviously put the process in place to scale the team and process and just attracting it, right? So
Exactly.
but obviously with that comes challenges. So one of them is capacity planning. That's what I'd love to dig into with you. So my experience, after going back, having started this from just me and growing it and working with people like Richard and others in our team, is projects can be feast or famine, right? So you have that going up and down. And there's other work to do in building up managed services. You got to do the proactive maintenance and making sure everything is healthy and patched and secure. So I know that's been challenging, and we've worked through models on that. Well, I guess what have you seen with challenges with managing time, and what are some of the goals with that?
Yeah, so when you're doing it either yourself or you have one person or two people on a team, you're doing one of two things. You're either selling or you're doing, right? You can't do both at the same time usually, and so that's the feast or famine side of things. Once you get into four people, three or four, then it gets a little bit better, easier, I suppose, because one person is doing most of the client-facing sales, so to speak, and because there's only a handful of people, daily how busy they are. You can see the forecast. You don't really need too much in the way of models. But what we found is, with the amount of growth that we've had, that we ran into an unknown. We figured it was coming, but weren't sure exactly when. But trying to put your finger on it, when you've doubled that, now you have 7 or 8 engineers, and now you're trying to determine how busy they are as a group. And like you said, making sure that you include internal systems, because you have these people working on your own things, and then you've got your regular proactive. We call it proactive work. For people that don't know what that means, that's just your things that you're going to do every single month for a particular client, regardless of if they ever call us. We're going to do that work, so you got to provide capacity planning for that. And it was always, for us, it was so difficult. I had to, I did my best to try and figure out a way, model things, Excel, you name it. I tried to figure it out, and it was a real challenge. And I'm pretty sure that there's other people that are maybe listening to this that, are currently experiencing that issue. And I don't know that we have it solved. And I know that in the future, doubling again we'll need to use some other methods too. I'm expecting, but the way that we are able to now put our finger on a number was to break down the problem. And I don't think that this is reinventing the wheel at all. This is how you solve most problems. You take the complex one, you break it down into smaller pieces, solve the smaller pieces, and then you get your answer as a whole. So the first step was breaking it down. So we introduced pods, teams, call it what you want, a smaller grouping of people. And then what we did is, when you have them split into that hierarchy, you assign somebody as the pod leader. The pod leader is responsible for a few different things, and it's kind of allowed us to generate that role of a pod leader and identify other things other than just capacity planning, advantages to having somebody do that role. But regardless, the primary thing as it relates to workload planning is that person is responsible for keeping the pulse on the workload of their team, because we know that you can do it for 4. So if one person's managing 4 people in their pod, they have an idea of exactly how busy that pod is. And so that's the first thing we did, is that we split into multiple teams. The other thing that we did is we took a weekly pulse. So we ended up using a spreadsheet. It still is that, but each pod is putting their own data into their spreadsheet, and that flows. It's configured to flow up into a central. The point being, though, is that we're only really looking. We tried to simplify the numbers, because in a sales role, all I'm really interested in is when is our next available slot, right? And so, and we broke the months into weeks, or I guess the year into weeks, I guess you could say. So that's all we do. I have a weekly meeting with the pod leaders. We discuss upcoming work that's coming. They have already filled out the workload planner, the data. They've typed in their data, and then that spits out a number, and that number is the week that they next have available for me to assign work to it, whether that's November week 3, December week 2, whatever that is. And that one number is all I really need for when I'm talking to a client, or when the other salespeople are talking to a client. They know that our next available slot is at that time. That spreadsheet, we've broken down internal, proactive, and project work, and it's all really easy for them to enter it in. It doesn't take them very much time, and that just flows right up to the top. And so overall, we know within a pretty good level of margin what our next available slot is. The weekly cadence of it allows for everybody here that's listening to this will have experienced somebody saying, hey, you know what, we'd like to book in for week 2 of November. And week 2 comes around and all of a sudden they're not ready. So it allows you to be flexible enough to, if you do get a window, that the number can be changed weekly, so that you can go back into the CRM, have a look to see if anybody's waiting in the queue, and then slot them in to that same spot. The precision of it isn't necessarily as important as being able to fulfill the promise. That's what we're really trying to do. We don't want to promise somebody, hey, you know what, we're going to do it next week, or we're going to do it tomorrow, or whatever, if we don't have the capacity to do so. What we've found is that clients are perfectly happy if you come to them and say, hey, we can fit you in sooner.
Yeah.
They're not super happy if you say, you know what, it's probably going to take another 3 weeks before we can actually get you in. So
I think that's, in the past, mistake we've made, is I didn't really know what was in the pipeline and how long stuff was going to take. So I'd be like, hey, based on utilization, how many people are employed and what's committed, like, we should be able to start this pretty quick. So we're like, yeah, let's start. But really, like some other projects, we maybe thought they were 80%, but that last 20% takes another 80%. And we had no project management, no visibility. So yeah, we'd always be over-promising, under-delivering. These projects would take forever to get done. So it seems like projects in your team are going really well and actually getting done and on to the next.
Yeah, we included stages. We're really leveraging the stages of project work. We're allowing for, the ad hoc support tickets that come through. We average those, because you've got that work that's going to show up that's not necessarily a project, somebody calling. We were able to average that out and include that in the workload capacity planning, so we don't overpromise ourselves. We don't overpromise our time commitments, and that's been really key to keeping client satisfaction quite high.
Yeah, awesome. So, how does ConnectWise help you with all of this?
So, ConnectWise, in and of itself, is our source of truth for a lot of our data. The main thing that we use it for would be for capacity planning on our proactive obligations. So each month a ticket is generated for that proactive work, for the management work we're going to do on a particular environment, and those have pre-assigned budgets. So because we've got the pre-assigned budget, that budget gets entered immediately, and then we have a capacity planning ahead for that entire month. We know exactly how many hours we need, and over the course of time, once those tickets are closed, we have another system. We're actually leveraging a Grafana dashboard and some custom queries to extract how much is left, and also that gives us an idea of what we need to do if we need to increase the amount of proactive time that we're spending. So we have a lull, like say that we have a client that does pull one of those, hey, we're not ready yet. That's that window. And if a client doesn't come in to fill that window, we are able to then focus on that proactive work and get that through through the pipe ahead of time. And then on top of that, we leverage top left. So we have an entire, each pod has its own dedicated proactive dashboard with top left, which has not just those numbers. The numbers version I'm talking about is really specific for me, and I'm able to really take a really high level view of it, but they're able to actually work within that system. And then you can visually see exactly what the workload is going to be like. So that's really where ConnectWise and top left has become valuable, is on getting those proactive workload. And that's a significant amount of our workload. That's more than half is proactive. So that's a really key core component.
And definitely got to happen. In the past, kind of we trusted that it was happening for the assigned engineer for that client, but 3-6 months later, 9 months later, like it really wasn't, or not at a good quality. So those tickets would stack up. It'd be in their backlogs, languishing in the backlogs.
Yes, It is extremely visual for us. It is front and center, and we know exactly if anybody's left. No client gets left behind with this system.
Yeah. Awesome. So structure. So it sounds like you got nobody with the hat or the title of project manager or service manager.
No.
Is that right? No. I think that's very unique compared to most MSPs at this scale.
Yeah, right now I think that's going to work for us. The pod leaders have a specific responsibility to keep a finger on the workload capacity. That's one part of it. I mentioned it earlier. The other part of that role is in making sure that they're communicating with clients. So they're responsible for community. So there's a bit of project management in that role. So they're all doing a little piece of it, so to speak. That's not their full job description, but they're doing a bit of that. On our roadmap, because we do have a pretty aggressive roadmap for hiring new engineers right now, I do suspect we're going to need to have a pod leader or manager. Right now, that's me, and that's fine. I'm able to, because of the way we've structured it, I'm able to leverage myself a whole lot. I can leverage my time a whole lot better because of the way we've got it structured. But eventually that'll get too big as well, and then we'll have to put somebody in the middle of that.
Yeah. Cool. And then with this Excel tool, I guess how's the admin time around that? Just managing the tool. It's kind of a manual thing, it sounds like, but what's the time effort on that like?
Oh, they do it within 30 minutes of each meeting, usually. There isn't much to it.
30 minutes a week.
Yeah, maybe.
Pipeline management.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all and it's interesting because I didn't prescribe them the how to do it in the sheet. I said these are the numbers you need to fill out, and I made that really easy. But determining the individual numbers, they actually, there were two of them. They went different directions on the same process, and they came up with the same result, same quality, just different ways of doing it. And so I'll let them figure it out, whatever's best for them.
Yeah. So is there like a number of projects that are in progress at a time that you look at? Like, would you know how many projects each pod is doing? Is that a metric you look at?
No, I don't bother looking at the quantity of projects, because it's really, all I really care about is how many active hours are going to be put into projects in a period. I'm not really concerned about the number of projects, although, the more you have going on, the more context switching there is. And so there's other problems with having, a large number of projects in your pipeline. But over the course of, based on what we see, usually an engineer is only dealing with 2 projects at a time, max. That's a typical number. But we don't monitor it and we don't worry about it.
Yeah, normally about 2. Or it's because basically the engineers, most of them are done by one engineer, right?
Most of them are done by one engineer.
Yeah.
We also have the commitment hours as well. So, clients that have a longer term project pipeline, it's almost like a regular thing. So we do capacity planning and make sure that there's enough space to fulfill those commitment hours as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and other teams have multiple people working on the same project, and then looking at the total number of projects going on is important. And that's where we've got at our Agile MSP boot camps, Steve presents. He presented last year, and he'll be presenting at the next one. And his projects, they do a lot of flat fee projects. We're mostly hourly, but we're using flat fee, and projects were always late, like 30% over budget, like more hours than he'd wanted to, taking more time. And then he got it down to being 30% under budget to get more projects done in a year. So that's directly to your bottom line. It's a huge difference. Mm-hmm. And looked at all sorts of complex things with software and AI and tools and number crunching and everything. But really learned that just reducing the number of projects at a time is the key. Less multitasking, less stuff to talk about. Get the project done and on to the next.
Right.
Yeah. But that's just the nature of his projects with lots of people involved. And if you've got a core engineer like the proverbial Brent from the Phoenix Project book, and he's on 10, 20 projects, then
there's your bottleneck.
Going to grind along. Yeah.
Yeah, we have the work spread out so that we don't have a single point of failure on the team. So we've avoided the Brent problem in that way.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, our clients haven't necessarily avoided the Brent problem because they might have 20 projects they want to get done and one person to do it all, and that doesn't work. But for ourselves, speaking for ourselves, it's not really a challenge. Not yet, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing we've been balancing is not having one person doing the same type of work. There's not like one person who's doing all the backup checks, another person who's doing all the patching. It's spread across so they get the variety. Otherwise, it just drives people crazy or bored because we're hiring crafty types. They need their fix of craftiness every day, every week.
Yeah, we found that that employee satisfaction goes down significantly if they're doing exactly the same thing every single day. Yeah. Fortunately, we have a nice variety of work that needs to get done, and yes, the workload gets spread amongst the entire team.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay, I can't think of anything else to ask on that. I think it's been very insightful to what's going on there and kind of the history and how that's working. Just some simple tools, visualize it, and having that conversation every week and empowering these pod leaders to work with their teams to manage that flow. Flow comes down to flow.
Yeah, it's been very, very successful for us. And they're happy. That's the great thing, is that they're not feeling stressed about it. And as a result, even they're now, because they're even just filling out that form, it's in their mind to think about, right? In the past, it would have been an engineer's only focused on themselves. When they're in that role, now they're thinking about something outside of themselves. And so the psychology changes too. It's been real positive for our team.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's been wonderful. I'm going to give a little teaser for our next episode, which we're going to record right after this, which will be on time entry, which is always a hot topic for the many hundreds of MSPs I talk to. Is it can be very stressful to get that to where it needs to be. A very important thing. So Chris and I are going to unpack that, how we've transformed that at Crafty Penguins as well. So I'll see you there. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me.